guys, it's Sam, and today I want to talk about my 2019 reading goals. If you want to see how I did on my reading goals in 2018, I recently posted my reading wrap-up, and I will link that on the screen. This video is being sponsored by Skillshare, which is fitting since this video is about goals. I will talk about them more later. And throughout this video, I will be showing you guys some of my bullet journal spreads that I did for my 2019 reading goals and my wrap-up for 2018 as well, because I managed to do that in the time between when I filmed my wrap-up and when I filmed this, so you guys can kind of see what I did with that. And I also am doing my 2019 overall life goals on my personal channel, so I recently did that, and I will link that on the screen as well. So if you want to see all of my 2019 bullet journal spreads and just my goals in general and stuff, that will be also in that video as well. So real quick before we move on to the 2019 goals, I just want to show you my 2018 wrap-up spread. Here is what I did to document everything, and I really like it. I wish I wouldn't have written this. I did this before I decided what I was going to do with the rest of it, and I wouldn't have had it like this if I had just waited. So this is how my wrap-up of 2018 looked. So my 2019 reading goals are really centered around one specific, main, overarching, all-encompassing goal for 2019. And that is to get my physical TBR to 20 books or less by Christmas of 2019. I've wanted to work on my physical TBR for a while, and I have like kind of chipped away at it. My TBR stayed fairly the same based on what I was reading and what I was bringing in and everything, but I used a lot of those stats that I had from last year to figure out how I could best tackle my TBR this year. So based on my reading for last year, which is probably gonna be a little different than my reading for this year, but I'm just basing it on that because that's the lowest that I could go, because that's probably the lowest that I would ever read. So it could really only go out from there, but I want to base my beginning of the year stats on that, and I can tweak it throughout the year if I need to. So last year's average additions to my TBR per month were 4.5 books. So between 4 and 5 books per month on average. My average amount of books read per month in 2018 was 5 books per month, with my big reading months averaging around 7, so again, that's like the lowest that I would go. So, my current TBR that I'm trying to whittle down is 67 books. Now, I actually have a few more than that on my shelf, but there were a few books that I don't plan on reading in 2019. The Wise Man's Fear and The Slow Regard of Silent Things, because I don't want to continue this series until the next book is officially announced. And The Emperor of All Maladies, which is a giant nonfiction book about cancer, and I want to read this. I'm going to read this at some point. I don't know if I'm going to read it in 2019. I might, but if anything, it might be in like November for Nonfiction November. So it's just not a book that I'm desperate to get off my shelf, but every other book on my shelf counts towards this TBR. So with all that being said, if I read an average of 8 books per month and keep up my current amount of TBR additions per month of like 4.5 on average, then I'll have 25 books at the end of the year. If I read 9 books per month, again with my current amount of additions every month, I will be down to 13 books by the end of the year. And I'm saying end of the year, Christmas. I want to get these done before Christmas, but again, if I'm reading a ton after Christmas time or whatever, like really it's by the end of the year, but I said by Christmas because by the time I get done with all these books, I'll probably want to ask for a bunch of books for Christmas, so I don't want to be like, oh, you didn't actually get your TBR down because you added all these books, but like that's not going to count. Like any books I get for Christmas 2019 aren't going to count towards this goal. So I did want to mention why I want to do this, because I know some people are going to be like, oh, I never want to get my TBR down, and that's fine. But this is my why and why I want to get my TBR down for me personally and my reading tastes. So having a smaller TBR, like 20 books or less, will allow me to get books read quickly after I buy them, because I find that that is when I tend to want to pick books up. The longer they sit on my shelf, the more I lose interest in them, even though I vaguely have this like, oh, I want to read that, I think that'd be cool. I just lose my general excitement for them, so I want to read books when I'm really excited about them within the first 6 months or so of reading them would be the goal. I found looking at my statistics from 2018 that I tended to read a lot of books within 6 months of getting them. I didn't tend to reach for books that I'm out of my shelf a long time, really, unless I push myself to. So based on how I read and how my excitement for reading goes and excitement for books, I want to read books shortly after getting them on my shelves. Whether they're new books or whether they're backlisted books or whatever, as I receive them, regardless of when they came out, I want to read them fairly quickly. That will also allow me to binge read series again. I said before at the beginning of my channel that I really like binge reading series, and then I just kind of lost that because I added books to my TBR, but then I didn't have the next book in the series, and I found that now it takes me a long time between books, like sometimes at least a year between each book in a series, and I don't like that because then I find that I've kind of lost the momentum of it. I have to get back into the world and what's going on. Even if I'm really excited about it, I remember the main points, there's still little things, and I just prefer, especially for these backlisted books, I know I can't do it for currently running series, but for backlisted books, I would like to be able to binge read series again. And lastly, this will allow me to keep up with any changing tastes. As you guys have seen me grow on BookTube and in my reading, my tastes have changed, where I was reading predominantly YA. Now I'm reading about half and half adult and YA, and then my tastes in authors and types of books changes, and sometimes even books, I feel like some genres have more of a shelf life than others, so books that maybe came out 3 years ago in certain genres don't feel as fresh or as exciting as newer stuff because the landscape is always constantly changing. So I want to be able to keep up with my changing book tastes and not have things on my shelf that I would have liked a couple of years ago because I could have just read them a couple of years ago if I had a smaller TBR, and then also keep up with the changing landscape of whatever genre I'm currently into. So with all that being said, there's a couple of little mini goals that I also have that will contribute to this and play into this getting my TBR down. The first is that I do want to read books within 6 months, so this is kind of tying in because it's hard because I want to get some books that have been on my shelf a long time read, so then the newer books will have to kind of fall by the wayside when I'm doing that, whatever. It's kind of a balance, but as I'm bringing new books in, I want to read those quickly. So I don't want to be just bringing books in and then having those sit and this being this like constant cycle. I want to read the new books quickly. So I'm going to be even more discerning than I am because I'm pretty discerning. I don't want to read books that I don't like. So you guys know that I will sometimes not even haul books, show you guys books that I get that I just am immediately unhauling. So I am pretty discerning about what I get, but I want to be even more discerning, possibly even getting to the point where it's like, if I'm sent a book that sounds cool to me, but it's like, I wasn't interested in it before, I didn't know about it before, I might just be unhauling it to really prioritize my TBR this year. Then I also want to keep up my goal that I didn't always achieve last year, but that I got close to certain months and stuff like that, trying to read at least 15 minutes a day regardless, and then shooting for like 30 minutes a day on the weekends. I'm hoping that my schedule with my new job allows this a little bit more, gives me a little more freedom for self-care and things like that. So I'm hoping that this is a more achievable goal, and again, it's helping me chip away at my TBR. So I do have some books that I know I'll be reading because I have a category of series that I'll be catching up on, whether that's finishing the series or just catching up, because those books are already present on my shelf, so I want to tell you guys about that so you can look forward to those if those are series that you were looking forward to me catching up on. And then I do have my annual TBR that I want to talk about as well, that I always do, of choosing books and splitting it up by 6 months for books that I want to get read on like an annual TBR. But I do want to mention that I'm adding an additional Patreon perk that contributes to this and has some involvement within this goal. So as you guys may or may not know, right now my Patreon supporters get to vote in polls every month of books that I will read and review that month, and also about additional content as far as video topics for my channel, my personal channel, and stuff like that. But I'm also adding this perk for every tier. Every month I'll be randomly picking a name using like a random name generator from all of my Patreon supporters, and whoever gets picked, I'll email them and ask them what book on my current physical TBR they want me to read that month. So it's even more specialized than the polls, which will still stay and are still a thing and are still something that everyone gets to contribute in. But then one kind of lucky winner per month will get to choose something off of my physical TBR they want me to read that month as well. So just another way to help me whittle down my TBR, but also help you guys to feel more involved with my channel. So if you want to participate in that, I will leave my Patreon linked on the screen and down below as always. So as far as the 5 series that I am going to catch up on in 2019, those are The Villains Duology, I think it's called, with Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, Restore Me by Tahada Mafi. I kind of want to reread the first couple of books before I do this, so if I want to binge read something, I might do this. So I read the first trilogy again, or at least the last 2 books in the first trilogy, and then read this to get back into this world. The Phoenix Empress by Kay Arsenault Rivera, The Republic of Thieves by Scott Lynch, although admittedly this might be later on in the year because I definitely want there to be like a set date for when the next book comes out, and Obsidio by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. Then, like I said, I have an annual TBR of books that I want to read every year, and this year, instead of doing 12 books in my annual TBR, I'm taking it down to 10 because I did notice that I wasn't reading like a book a month off my annual TBR. I was putting pressure on it for being on my annual TBR. It just was making me feel things. So I decided to take it down to 10. So for the first 6 months, these are the 5 books that I want to get read. And then as always, I'm going to be doing a mid-year check-in on my reading goals and on my annual TBR, and I'll be able to talk about those books. And then the second half of the year, 5 books that I'll read for my annual TBR. So for the first 6 months of 2019, we have Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett, The Trader Baru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson, Stolen Songbird by Danielle Jensen, The Swan Gondola by Timothy Schaefert, which is one of my oldest books on my TBR and why I want to get it read, and The River of No Return by B. Ridgway, I think the second oldest book on my TBR. I think I got both of those in a similar haul, so want to read both of those in the first half of the year. So that is my overarching reading goal for 2019, and I want to show you my bullet journal spread that links to that. So we have my overall goals spread, and this little star thing shows that this is my main goal as far as getting my TBR down, and then these little things that will help with that. Then I have finished 5 series, read books within 6 months, and read 15 minutes per day. Then over here I have a little TBR shelf, so as I read the books in my annual TBR, I'm going to fill and color them in on this little bookshelf here. And as I said, this video is being sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with more than 25,000 classes on different topics from experts in their field. A premium membership gives you unlimited access to all of those classes. So depending on what your goals are for 2019, Skillshare can help you with your creativity, building your community, with your career, whatever it is that you may be pursuing for your goals in 2019. Skillshare is also super affordable. It's less than $10 per month for a premium subscription. So there are more than 7 million creators already learning on Skillshare. If you are interested in trying out Skillshare and seeing if it's for you and if it can help your 2019 goals, I have a link down below. The first 500 of my subscribers will receive 2 months of Skillshare free to try out if you are interested. So comment down below and let me know what your reading goals for 2019 are. I definitely feel like only having one is weird for me because I'm used to having a lot more and more specific ones, but I'm really trying to just tackle that TBR this year, and I'm really excited about it because I really want to do it in 2018. It just wasn't the right time for it. So I'm very excited about tackling my TBR. Let me know if you're doing something similar with your TBR or whatever your reading goals may be. Please let me know. I love talking about reading goals and goals in general. And like I said, if you're interested in more of my other personal goals, because I have a ton of personal goals, I feel like I'm making up for the lost reading goals with all these personal goals that I have this year that I'm really excited about. Definitely check out my personal channel, which is as always linked down below because I have my 2019 goal video already posted there. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.